You're listening to the Tom Green Podcast. This is Tom, and I hope you guys are doing good. I appreciate you tuning in. I can see the numbers on the podcast are going up, up, up. I see that many, many, many more people every day are discovering the Tom Green Podcast is back. We are going daily. Never done the show daily before on the internet. This is interesting. It takes a pandemic to lock me up in my house and turn on this thing and podcast away. And I guess the reason that I'm doing it is not just for myself, because it has been cathartic and it's given me something to do while I'm here in isolation. But it's also, I feel, something that I'm able to do. I'm able to turn on these microphones. I have lots of incredible and interesting friends who can call in and share their thoughts and give us some information and hope during this scary time. One of those friends is Anthony Scaramucci. You may also know him as The Mooch. He's an entrepreneur, an American financier, a political consultant, and he also briefly worked as the White House Director of Communications for President Donald Trump. I met Anthony Scaramucci and became friends with him when we were on the Celebrity Big Brother together. And we lived in the Big Brother house, and about 11 days we were in there together. We had an alliance, and we spent most of our time really talking to each other. And it was, he's a really an incredibly intelligent and interesting and funny guy, and he's going to be calling up any minute. And the reason I want to talk to Anthony today is to try to put some information out there and hopefully put our minds at ease about the economy. Everybody is talking about the economy right now. Is this going to be a doomsday scenario? Is this going to be like the Great Depression? Is this going to be a total economic collapse? What do you do with your investments if you have any? What do you do? What are we supposed to do in the financial markets? These are the kinds of questions that I'll be asking him, and I'm just looking at the phone, and it looks like he's calling right now. Hello there, Anthony.
Tom, how you been, man? You good? You're in LA? Where are you?
I am in LA, and you know, I'm in LA. I'm quarantined in my home in LA, and
Okay.
can you believe?
Okay.
I mean, I'm not quarantined, medically quarantined. Just to clarify, I'm self-isolating, But
You don't have any symptoms, though, do you? Or you do?
no symptoms. I'm just I'm basically
Okay,
just
good. Thank God.
I'm just abiding by the stay-at-home order in Los Angeles County and trying not to go out and just do my part. But how are you doing?
Yeah.
And can you believe?
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you. You know, I have no symptoms, and but I got two young kids, and so Deirdre and I are like locked in the house. I mean, not that we're not taking walks and stuff like that, but I don't want these kids anywhere near anybody. Let me just put it to you that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
So, so that's where we are right now. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you calling. You know, you're always such an amazing and informative voice out there. We, of course, became friends when we were on the Celebrity Big Brother, which, you know, I was thinking about this. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Before we get into more serious subjects, do you think being locked up in that house for however many days we were in there prepared us for this quarantine we're under?
So it's so funny because I talked to Sharon Vong, who you may or may not remember, but she is the head of unscripted television at CBS, and we were laughing. You know, obviously we're concerned about the tragedy of death related to this, but you know, the less tragic side of it is that this is like a global Celebrity Big Brother, except you're stuck in the house with your kids and your wife, and so it's a totally sort of the same arrangement. The only difference, Tom, as we both know, is that we can get the news when we get outside. You know, our only time outside was on that AstroTurf. Remember that?
Absolutely.
We open up those sliding doors and stand on the AstroTurf.
And this is of course terrifying as well, what we're going through now. And I mean, how are you coping with this, and your kids and your family? Are people afraid?
Well, let me take it in a couple of layers. Okay, so layer number one, obviously, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I'm running $10 or so billion, and I have a whole healthcare team that's advising our fund. And so I'll give you the bad news first. The bad news is there's no way to get the economy restarted until possibly 4 to 6 weeks out from where we are right at this moment. I mean, and that's just a sad thing to say, but it's just the most likely outcome because the resources that we have in the healthcare system mathematically would not be able to help or provide the supplies or the care necessary to help people get through this if they were in the bad part of the statistics where they got the disease or they got violently sick from the disease. So for all those reasons, even though this is having a very big impact on the economy, this is a way better scenario for the United States and for the globe is to reduce the number of hospitalization incidents, and that is just to get people away from each other so that the virus itself will die. One last point, I just want to make this point. We are at a standstill economically, so there are lots of people with tremendous anxiety. This is very different from the global financial crisis or from 9/11. This is basically a consumption aggregate demand depression. So it's literally like we stopped the economy. And so if you extrapolate the math, which we've done at Skybridge, this is a $6 trillion hole in a $21 trillion economy. And so that's the main reason why I've been recommending that we have to use at least $3 trillion of the government's money or borrowings to replace some of that aggregate demand.
So to jump right into the economic impact, because there's nobody that knows more about this than you, a lot of people are worried about their investments, about the stock market, their money. What should people do right now?
Well, I mean, if you have money in the stock market, this is the absolute worst time to sell. I would recommend that you stay in the stock market. The Federal Reserve is taking steps that I think will help the markets once the virus ends. They've injected about $1.5 trillion of capital into the system. They just started a quantitative easing program, which just basically means that they're buying treasuries and agency-related mortgages to help provide liquidity for banks and large-scale institutional investors that may, for crisis reasons, need to sell. But there was an announcement here this Sunday that they're going to expand that by $4 trillion. So if you're a market participant right now and you own stocks, I would stay in the stocks. I would not be panic selling into this crisis. We could be 6, 12, 18 months out, and you will regret those sales. Could the market go lower, Tom? Yes. Could it be another 10% lower? Yes. But the same way you're not going to sell your house today and it may have dropped in value, think of your stocks like that. Don't look at them on the screen or in the paper or on your smartphone. Just shut the phone off for a couple of months and hold yourself where you are.
So, there's a lot of doomsday scenarios on the internet. The internet is a crazy place where everybody is glued on their phones now. I don't know if this has been happening to you, but amongst my friends and online and on social media and our listeners here and all the people that I interact with, you get all these videos and things sent to you and their statistics, and they're saying that this is going to be, worse than the Great Depression. Is there any validity to any of that stuff? Could this possibly be worse than the Great Depression?
I don't see this as being worse than the Great Depression, primarily because of the coordinated governmental response. If your viewers like this sort of economic history, there's a phenomenal book. It was written about 10 years ago called The Lords of Finance. And it was actually written about the central bankers, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the German Bundesbank, what they did during the crisis of 1929. And literally, they did the exact opposite of what they should have done, and it steepened the crisis, steepened the recession, and turned it into a depression. In this situation, Again, I want to talk very objectively, leave the politics out of it for a second. This is just about right or wrong policy, not left or right policy. The Federal Reserve is operating exactly how it should in this crisis. If the government comes up with a $2 or possibly $3 trillion stimulus package, it is very remote and unlikely that we will get a depression. However, what is probably factual on the internet and is bad news is that we've had a full-blown global supply chain disruption. So those iPhones that were likely to come out next September, they probably won't be able to get them out until March of 2021. The new products, they've been delayed. Hollywood, been delayed. I can take you through a list. This is the thing that worries me is that, it's almost like 9/11 plus the global financial crisis, and you've had a homeland invasion, and that homeland invasion is an invisible soldier. It's an invisible molecule that could kill some of your loved ones. And so, as a result of that, it's created a lot of fear and anxiety. And even if the economy reopens, I think the consumption may be slower than we would like it to. I don't think you toggle from off on the economy and then you flip the switch on the economy and everything goes exactly back to where it was, particularly if we are homebound like we are here in New York and California for the next 3 to 6 weeks. So yes, it's going to be a steep recession. There's definitely going to be a setback, but I don't see a global pandemic turning into a global depression.
That's why I appreciate you talking to me today, and to my listeners and everybody. Let you go, spread your knowledge all over the world all the time on CNN and on other networks. Because I think the thing that is really causing a lot of the fear for people is the fact that they just don't understand. Like I personally don't even, I don't understand how the stock market works. I understand how it works on a basic level, but not at the level that you do. So, of course. So, so when you're able to sort of explain it like that, and you're not feeling panicked about it, that makes me feel not panicked about the idea of an economic collapse, or every restaurant in the country is closed. Are they going to be closed for 18 months, or are they going to be closed for 3 months, or are they going to be closed for 3 weeks? I mean, how long is everything going to be closed for?
Yeah, well, let me say something too, which I think will make a lot of sense. If we were at war, they would take you and I to Paris Island, and they would teach us how to shoot a gun. And then the first thing they would do is they would tell you, okay, you hear the gunshots, your heart starts racing, and you're a human being, as am I, and you would want to run away from those bullets. And so what the Marines would teach you to do is to run towards them. And it would take about 12 weeks, and before you know it, you're turning into a soldier where you're hearing gunfire, and you're not going to react to it the way a normal human being would. And so what happens in the stock market, it's a very unique thing. When stocks go on sale, it's not like chopped meat in the supermarket or women or men's apparel in the department store. Nobody wants to buy stocks when they're on sale because it's a psychology thing. There's a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety tied to our money. We see our money dropping in value, and we start to get very fearful. But just like in the military, I'm 31 years in the business. I'm actually trained to run towards the stock market when it's acting this way, not run away from it. And I'll take your listeners back to the 2008 crisis. That would have been a really unfortunate time to sell. And if you just had the patience to see things through, and, I made a good part of my career, frankly, buying assets into the rubble of that crisis and getting my clients to recognize that when stocks are on sale or the bond market's on sale, it is the best time to be buying them. If you think that we're going into a global depression, then of course it would not be a good time to do it. But if you're trained like me and you study the economy the way I've studied the economy, and you understand the monetary supply and the monetary policy, you would have great confidence that what I'm saying is correct. So one quick on the stock market. Not going to be able to teach it in 30 seconds, but I just want people to think about it this way. It is ownership in great companies, whether it's Walt Disney or Federal Express or AT&T or Amazon, you're getting to be able to participate in the ownership of that company. And so what the stock market tries to do is it says, okay, what are the future earnings of Amazon? Let's say, Tom, you and I went and bought a two-family house in LA, and we know what the rent is going to be coming out of that two-family house. Well, if I told you, well, here's 20 years worth of that rent, that's our projection, then you and I would figure out what we would pay for that house today. And it's just like that in the stock market. You're buying Amazon today based on the fundamentals of what you think Amazon will do over the next 20 plus years. And not to bore people, but it's just a present value of those future earnings is what's represented in the stock market. So the reason why the market went down so much is that the future earnings are going to get disrupted, and the future earnings, frankly, for a period of time are going to be less than what people thought, and that's why they've sold those stocks. But as that starts to come back, and as optimism starts to come back, you'll see those share prices rise. And remember, you've got trillions and trillions of dollars of market participants, and there's a tremendous amount of cash on the sidelines.
How much of a shock is this? I mean, obviously, this is a shock to everybody in the way we're living our lives. But here we were in the stock market was higher than it's ever been. Was it higher than it's ever been? I don't know. It was very high.
Yes. Actually, 3 weeks ago, the stock market was higher than it's ever been.
Higher than it's ever been.
Absolutely correct.
And has this been the most dramatic drop ever, or has that been?
It's very similar to the 1987 crash. We haven't gone to the 1929 levels where you had like a 90% decline, but you've had about a 35% decline.
Okay.
And so you're sort of in between where we were in 2008, where we had a 55% decline, and where we were in 1987, where we had basically a 22 to 25% decline. So it's worse than 87. It's still better than 2008. And I'll give you the good news and bad news. I want to tell people very honestly. The good news is there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the economy. It's not like the banks are going bankrupt like they were in 2008 or in 1929. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the economy other than the fact that none of us can commercially transact if we can't get together. We can't go to a shopping mall. We can't go to an office building. We can't go to a movie theater.
Yeah.
And so a result of that, all of that consumption has been slowed down. But I do believe it will come back. And I think it'll come back. And because of the liquidity that the government is providing, I think it'll come back in a much bigger, much more positive way. And I hope you'll invite me back in 6 or 12 months from now. We can discuss, and you can play this. You can play this clip, and I'll either be really right, and you'll praise me, or I'll let you dunk me in the town square if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well,
if we're not confident about this.
If we're not quarantined in our own homes, and you can come to the studio in person, I'll know something went right.
All right, well, that's the deal.
Deal, absolutely. Now, of course, you worked with the president. You were there with. I worked with the president as well, as you know. He fired me on The Celebrity Apprentice, my old boss. Your old boss as well. How would you rate his?
It was the first thing you said to me when I came into the Big Brother house. First thing you said,
Exactly. Yeah. And we how would you? And again, I'm trying not to. I'm trying to do a lot of things on this show carefully. It would be easy for me on the internet to go on and talk about doomsday scenarios and talk about the worst case scenario of what could happen with the disease, the worst case scenario that what's happening politically. I have viewers, listeners and viewers all over the country, all over the world, and obviously from all political leanings. And so it's not sort of a, bash the president show. That being said, how would you rate his performance in this crisis and leading up to it?
Well, listen, I have had a sea change as well, because about 5 or 6 days ago, the president did a 180. His friends at Fox News also did a 180. But if you saw me last Monday on Morning Joe, I basically said that the president is acting like a virus, meaning he's replicating his insanity and his mismanagement and his bad execution skills throughout the federal government. And so I was very negative on him, but I don't want to be overly negative on him right now because they have done this 180 and they have now started to marshal the resources of the government necessary to calm the anxiety that the average American has and to make people feel more confident that we're going to pull through this. But I'll just say this to your listeners, and they can find this. It's all factual. He had the information in early January, and he failed to act on it. He then said it was a hoax. He then said that it was one case, not a big deal, totally under control. He then said we had 15 cases. It was going to go down to 0. He then said it was going to disappear in April with the hot weather. And people were telling him, no, sir, that's not going to happen. It's not happening that way. And he was not listening. And so I don't know who got to him, Tom, and I don't know who caused him to flip. But I'm very, very happy that they did because we still have time to correct a lot of problems. If we started in January, could this have been a lot better? Absolutely. But you know what? The president, like all of us, is a human being. I'll point to people to the, in 1941, they were very critical of FDR because of the Pearl Harbor attack. And many people felt that he should have known about the attack and he should have prevented that attack or we should have been ready for it. But he went on to become one of our greatest presidents, and he was a wartime president. So I don't like the way he's handling it. I certainly don't like the lies and the mistruths and the exaggerations in the press briefings that he's doing. You may have seen Governor Cuomo, some of his press briefings. They're much clearer. They're way more honest. They're more factually based. They're inspiring in a lot of ways because they are providing the facts, which often calm people down, but it's also putting the facts in context to make people feel optimistic that we can all get through this. When the president's saying nonsense like this drug works and that drug works, and he has Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's one of the most esteemed scientists and doctors in the world, has to come up to the podium after him and say, no, none of that's true. We really don't know if it works or it doesn't. That rattles people. Now, there's a large group of people, primarily Fox viewers on the Fox News channel or conservatives, that the president can do no wrong for. But for me, 6 or 12 months ago, probably 7 months ago, his mannerisms and his personality and the way he was handling things was just a bridge too far for me to continue to support him. So I'm sitting here shocked that he still has this level of support inside the Republican Party.
Does it seem like there has been some sort of cooperation between the Democrats and the Republicans a bit more since this crisis? It does feel a little bit like that is starting to happen.
Yeah, no question. I definitely think that a crisis provides clarity. A crisis provides people the opportunity to step through their anchored tribal positions and to get to where our common cause is. I don't want to get metaphysical with your listeners, but I am going to say this. It is a reminder. This virus is a reminder of how much we have in common. It doesn't care, the virus, if you're wealthy, black, white, rich, or poor, does not care. It's systemic and can hurt all of us. And I wonder if it's nature's way of sending us a wake-up call about what we need to do together as opposed to what we are doing to oppose each other. So we'll have to see how this all unfolds. But for me, I hope people get that message that, we should settle it down a little bit. We can disagree for sure, but we don't have to demonize each other and turn into these vicious maniacs.
It's an optimistic comment, and it's something that I've been hearing and thinking myself is, obviously this is a horrifying emergency, and then you start thinking, could something good come from this? And then you feel, well, is that a horrible thing to say? Could something good come from this thing? But it is true what you say, with everybody in their homes, slowing down, thinking about what's going on. I feel like it makes us think about the world as how the world might be a lot smaller of a place than maybe we might have thought, especially people that don't travel. I mean, you travel, you know that you can get on a plane one morning and be having lunch in Dubai the next day. Whereas a lot of people, they don't travel. They work in the city that they grew up or the state that they grew up in, and they've never left. And when they think China, well, that is so far away. That's another world. It's another planet, another universe. And then when you see that that a virus could start over there, and in a rather few months later, it's right in your neighborhood, and it's causing all of this real, tangible, measurable impact with restaurants closed and people sick and everybody panicking. You say, wow, the world is a small place. Maybe it is possible to pollute with my car and change the climate. Maybe it is possible to have that kind of an impact on this whole planet. Maybe we should all think about the health of our society. Maybe we should have a better healthcare system. Maybe we should look out for those homeless people on the street who are, sick, because maybe if they get sick, then I might get sick. Do you think people might start thinking like that more collectively, or is it going to stay partisan, or is it going to be?
Well, I certainly hope so, but I think it's going to be people like yourself and me and others that are going to have to get that message out there. Otherwise, cynicism will come back in. If you get a moment, download The Death of Prospero, the short story by Edgar Allan Poe. And basically it is a brilliant story about a plague, and yet there's a group of very, very wealthy people. It's a plague. Very group of wealthy people are partying at a masquerade party, and of course someone walks in who is afflicted with the plague in a mask. And it's a very interesting social statement for these people that are actually ignoring what is actually going on outside and what is actually going on with their common man and or woman. And so the point being is that, we have to get that back, if you will. We have to get that common cause. And frankly, we had a lot of it after the Second World War. I think the common struggle of that war, so many of our men and women in uniform recognizing how much we had in common in the nation, I think certainly did help that. So hopefully this could be a start for that. The title, The Death of Prospero, it's also called The Mask of the Red Death. But it was written by Edgar Allan Poe in 1842. And it's probably as prescient today as ever. And so I've been recommending my friends that it'll take you 15 minutes to read it, but I think it'll have a big social impact on the way you're thinking about the world and the way we should be thinking about it.
That is perfect. Anthony, thank you so much for calling and talking to me and my audience here today. I really do truly appreciate it.
Anytime, Tom. Let's get back together, okay? I miss you. The last time I saw you, I was in my business suit heading out the back door at Celebrity Big Brother, and I was dying to give you a hug and say goodbye to you, but I couldn't because I had signed a confidentiality with CBS that no one would know. But did I get you? Was I able to spoof you a little bit?
Oh my! So just on a lighter note for all of our Big Brother fans out there, which we've got this. I'm sure you've are now interacting with this incredible Big Brother fan base.
Question.
Worldwide. And so on the show, of course, for those that don't watch the show, we're living in a house with a bunch of celebrities. It was Celebrity Big Brother, and we did not know each other before the show, and you came in. We, I guess, had a little alliance going there, didn't we? It was you and myself and Kato Kalin, right? And we were sort of planning and coming up with strategies, and of course talking about our old boss, Donald Trump, the president. Because I worked for the president too. And then all of a sudden, I thought I had my everything figured out, and then all of a sudden one day I'm looking around in the house that's only like 2,000 square feet or something, and I'm saying, Where's Anthony? Is he over in the kitchen? No. Wait, is he upstairs in the apartment? No, I haven't seen him anywhere. Where's my friend Anthony? And then all of a sudden the TV flickers on. Expect the unexpected. And Julie Chen tells us that you were a plant, you were a mole, you were never there. And I got to tell you, you get emotional. You get emotional in there, right? Because it's weird. And I started thinking, was Anthony?
It's a lot more stressful than people think.
Yeah, and I was thinking, you're gone, you left me. And then I started, was Anthony really ever my friend? And then,
I was, Tom. I was your friend. I love you, man. You're a very unique guy. It's just that, I had to deal with him. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay for 28 days because I'm running this $11 billion pool of assets. But I told him I could stay for...
Hey, I got I had a podcast I have to do too. We all got things to do.
All right. Well, I love you. You be safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And same thing to your viewers. Be safe and healthy. And let's get together soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony, and all the best to the family. And God bless you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anthony Scaramucci, and thank you to all of you for listening to the Tom Green Podcast. I'm still here in my home, broadcasting daily. If you want to tell your friends and family how to listen, please add the links to this podcast on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, on all your social media. Just put the Tom Green Podcast in quotes. Look it up on Google if you don't know how to find it, and then you can find and copy the embed code, the link, and send that out to your friends. I'm trying to get information out to people that is going to help everyone deal with this unprecedented situation. This is a scary situation. When you look up at what's going on, when you get up in the morning every day and you think, what is going on? Are we being told to stay in our homes? Is this the end of the world? Is this an economic collapse? Is this World War III? What's happening here? Is this pandemic going to continue to spread? And of course, these are all concerns. Certainly, we have to fight this virus with as much of our efforts as we can. But let's not drive ourselves into panic where we start making bad decisions, where we start making mistakes, where we start doing things to make it worse. The internet is a scary place sometimes. It's a tool that gives us so much incredible access and communication with people all around the world, and the ability to do things that we never dreamed of being able to do. But it also can be a terrifying place. I have been waking up in the morning to text messages and emails from friends and family. Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you read this? Did you read that? And everybody's working themselves into a lather. So I think it's important to have a place where we can take a deep breath and listen and think and get information that is trying to analyze what's going on in a little bit more of a balanced and cautious way. Because I don't want to use this platform as a means of riling you up even more. I really do truly love all of you. I've been doing this for 30 years now. I started doing stand-up comedy 32 years ago when I was a 16-year-old kid in Canada. Led to the Tom Green Show on MTV after years of goofing around on public access television up in my hometown of Ottawa. I've done films. I've been on tour for the last decade, going all over the world and meeting and interacting with so many of you. And I appreciate all of you for coming out and supporting me on all of these endeavors and on this podcast and on the Webo Vision, which I did for many years here from my home, where I built a television studio in my house and did essentially the first live streaming talk show in the history of the internet. Doing that talk show, was fortunate enough to have met so many incredible people. People would come up and be guests on the show. And I would invite my favorite comedians. I would invite Joe Rogan. I would invite Norm Macdonald, Harland Williams. I would invite everybody that I loved and was a fan of. I would invite. And they came. They came and they did the show. And now I have all of these incredible people in the city that I'm proud to be able to call friends. And I'm going to be going through my Rolodex. Do we have a Rolodex anymore? I don't know. Through my phone, contacts, and I'm going to be reaching out to all of my friends, and I'm going to ask them if they can call in here while I'm in quarantine and try to impart some of their unique wisdom to all of us, so that maybe we can get a perspective that is going to make this whole thing a little bit less damned scary. So, in the meantime, follow doctor's orders, follow CDC orders, pay attention to what the truth is, and let's figure out what the truth is together. Let's decipher it, and let's be safe. I am self-isolating. I am not going out into the community right now. I'm certainly not shaking hands. I am self-isolating not only because I don't want to get sick, and not only because I don't want to. I know I'm reasonably sure right now I'm not an asymptomatic carrier, but that's the thing, nobody knows. I haven't been isolating for 14 days, so until you haven't interacted with any human being for 14 days, then there's no way to know if you have it or not. So you can't just decide to stay in because you're not feeling sick, because you could be sick and not know it. And even if you never have symptoms, going out and hanging out with your friends and living life as if nothing is going on and shaking hands and going to places that are public and rubbing shoulders and shaking hands with people, you could be getting someone sick, and then that person could get someone sick, and then that person could get someone sick. And then somebody could get sick who actually really, really does react badly to this virus. So we don't want to be part of that, and I want to lead by example. And I'm not leaving the house. I am not leaving the house. And I'm going to stay here until this thing turns a corner. And I'm prepared to not leave my house for several months. That's what's going on here. And this is a lifeline for me, this podcast, speaking to all of you. And I'm going to start taking phone calls on the show. We're going to do that very soon. If you want to call into the show, you'll watch me on Instagram. Whenever I go live on my Instagram story, I will give you more information about that. And when I take calls, I'll stream live on my Instagram story at Tom Green, my Instagram story. And I will give out a phone number, and you can call, and you can share information about how things are going in your part of the country, in your part of the world. People all over the world are listening to this podcast right now. Everywhere in the world. We have listeners as far away as Japan and Australia, Canada, and all over the United States, England, the United Kingdom, everywhere in the world. There's hardly a country in the world that I do not see at least one or two people watching. I think I have one guy watching in, Lithuania or something like that. But look, let's be smart. Let's not panic. Let's not be afraid. But let's be safe. See you tomorrow.